And we're live. How you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Not too bad. It seems like it's been forever, hasn't it?
It's been a while. It's been a
It's
while.
been it's been a while. Yeah, for people that haven't seen us for about 5 6 weeks, I've had a whole lot of family things going on. Mom passed away March 21st, and then my wife's father passed away March 31st. Just been a whole lot of whirlwind of family events and things that's happened in a short amount of time, and working through all that, and trying to keep head on straight and stay sane in this chaotic environment that we live in has been kind of a real trial, but we made it through. And enough about bringing everybody down with all that nonsense. I don't want to start the day off with a bummer, a buzzkill or whatnot. But how you been, man?
I've been good. I've been good. We did, in all of your chaos and confusion, we did manage to both get a week away and
Hmm.
went and took a little camping trip and done some investigations. Got some really, really awesome stuff. A lot of you people in the chat will know what we're talking about because we saw some of you and spoke about it last week at the conference with you. Um, but yeah, I mean that was a good weekend. Then last weekend at the conference was a pretty good weekend. Also, part of the reason we weren't doing a show the last couple of weeks,
Yeah,
we had our little weekend getaway, and then the conference coming up. So
yeah, yeah. We did have a really good outing tracking. A couple of juveniles were side by side for 100 plus yards. It was amazing to see these tightrope tracks side by side. I mean, and then go around a tree. They split and come right back to shoulder looking. Tracks were no bigger than 9 inches. I think we saw some that were like 14, 15 inches. And then we saw two about this, well, one set about the size, about an inch shorter than my cell phone. Looked like it stood on
yeah,
that log and
yeah,
jumped
there was a
down.
couple of times that we found some that weren't any bigger than your
It's just
hands.
toddlers, just toddlers. Jumped, made an impression with both feet, took a left step from that impression, and then vanished amongst the others that were there. There were hundreds of tracks there,
Yeah,
and all kinds of things. And then when I went back day before yesterday, um, or was it yesterday?
it was yesterday.
Yeah, when I went, it was
Yeah,
yesterday.
when you sent me the videos, yeah, yesterday.
Yeah, there was destruction. There was small old cypress logs brought into a place where there wasn't any. A log that we used as a marker so we
Gone.
could see. Yeah, the log itself standing up. You stuck it and stood it up. It's just completely gone. It's not even there. It was taken away. I looked and looked in that area, and it
Yeah,
was
we
taken
we
away.
had used it as a marker because we poured some plaster in a cast and we tied a yellow Donald or general bag around this probably 18 to 20-foot log, and then I stuck it in the soft, swampy ground. And it was up there all weekend. And apparently now the whole
It's
log's
gone.
gone.
The whole log is gone. Like you couldn't miss where it was. You
Yeah,
could
it,
walk straight in.
that
Yeah,
log.
yeah, it's completely gone. Um, well, enough about us. Tonight we have a guest. His name is Thomas Sewid, um, and Sewid, and he is a First Nations Native American up there in the British Columbia area. He's been all over up there, and I believe he's going to be able to teach us a lot of things about what we call Bigfoot and Sasquatch through the eyes of a Native American who lives amongst them, whose tribes lived amongst them, who lived alongside them, and has been around, probably as long as they have. It's just going to be really interesting to get that perspective because a lot of times we just deal with people like you and me who have a certain view on what we see and what we know, but what we see and what we know aren't necessarily the truth of what
Yeah,
they
yeah,
are. You know what I mean? Like I've said from the get go, every Native American tribe in the United States and Canada has a name for these things, and they don't call them an animal, they call them a people. And
yeah,
I think to discount anything that the Native Americans have to say about what we call Bigfoot or Sasquatch. This was me. Um, they would have more knowledge about these beings, these people, than we could ever have. Which is why I wanted Thomas to come join us tonight and kind of educate us through the eyes of First Nations Americans. So with that, Thomas, you know, bring me on, bud. You are the star tonight. Thomas, welcome.
Yela Kasla, greetings. Thank you for
Yes,
having me, invite me to your show.
absolutely. We are thrilled to have you. And again, I'm genuinely excited to hear about what you can teach us and tell us and educate us on. And right from the get go, you're looking at two guys right here that aren't easily offended. So um, we can offend some people like nobody's business, but we're not easily offended. And I know some people um, may be a little touchy on things. If y'all are a little touchy about a Native American culture and right and wrong about it or whatever, I mean, maybe this might not be for the show for you, but this is a show for us, which is why we got you on here, Tom. Um, let us know a little bit about you. You were telling us some crazy stuff. You've done more stuff by the time you were 16 than I have done yet already. So give us a little bit of a background and in the life of Thomas Sewid.
Well, I was born in northern Vancouver Island, British Columbia, coast region, in an island called Alert Bay. And I guess you could say it's the center of the northern Kwakwaka'wakw tribes. It was everyone sort of moved there from the outland villages because it had grocery stores. Kids would stay home instead of being at a residential school, and yeah, movie theater was one excuse for one of my elders why he moved from the isolated village out in the islands to Alert Bay. He said, "Well, they had movie theater. And John Wayne was killing Indians. I had to go move to Alert Bay to watch it, and eat popcorn." So everyone had their exodus from their traditional territories. So the Kwakwaka'wakw Nation, which simply means the Kwakwala speaking people, is made up of 16 recognized tribes. Four of them from the south are called Lehwata, but we're all united, and we have the great ceremonial potlatch where, as a kid, going to them, always was just enthralled by a couple different dances with masks and regalia. But the one that I always liked was the Chunacha, the Sasquatch. And you'd see the mask with puckered up lips and sleepy eyes. The Jonah would come on the dance floor around the fire with all the carved house posts inside, vertical and horizontal. So it's like being in a spiritual realm. And with the firelight, you watch this scary wild woman of the woods come to life and dance and song. And it was amazing. And then, of course, walking through the village, you see the memorial totem poles. We call them memorial poles in the graveyard in the center of town, and some of them were back carved in the 1800s, and you'd see at the bottom this outstretched arms, big breasts, puckered lips, sleepy eyes, Jonacha at the base of five of the poles. And it's telling you that the chief who died, the highest ranked crest of the Kwakwaka'wakw Nation, the Jonacha, he's got it on his memorial pole because it's telling the world that with outstretched arms, his power and wealth when he was alive and after death was felt around the world. So the Drunacha crest to us, like me wearing one of my designs here on my shirt of a Drunacha, which is Paddy frame 352 in my native art. But what I'm doing is I'm proclaiming my family holds title to that crest. And I have the right to display it, to wear it, to use it, do whatever I want, even bring it to life and dance and song. But it's like having a Rolex or a Mercedes Benz. You're showing your wealth and power. And that's what it means to our people. And when you go to Northern Vancouver Island and even Vancouver, because the Kwakwaka'wakw tribe is our art and culture is so influenced the non-natives back in the day that they would hire our carvers to carve totem poles and buy our poles and masks and put them in their museum. So in Vancouver, Victoria, Seattle, then up into our traditional territories in northern British Columbia, going to Vancouver Island, a lot of people refer to it as Ape Island. I tell people going to Vancouver Island is like going to King Kong's island in the movie. There's not effigies, but there's carvings of not Kong, but of Chonakwa everywhere. And if you go to the ceremonial big houses and see all the vehicles and smoke coming out of the smoke hole, you walk up to the door after you park, the door will open after the speeches and dances by the attendants. And they'll say, Kela Kasla, greetings, come on in, grab a seat. And the chief will share his wealth with you, and you will witness that wealth of a Chonakwa mask and regalia come to life on dance and on that floor. And every chief is simply bringing to life what an ancestor witnessed when they saw a Sasquatch. My family, it has a basket on her back, and as she's dancing, she comes on the floor and she does an anti-clockwise circle, which is our etiquette before you enter the main floor of dirt. And as they go anti-clockwise, the Sasquatch will yawn and then it rubs its eyes like it just woke up. Because Sasquatches are humans of the night. When we sleep, they're active. So when our ancestors and even me, when you run into a Sasquatch in the daytime, they're sleeping usually. That's why we dance with the yawning and rubbing our eyes. And as they go around the floor, they like they do from island to island and in the forests of the Pacific Northwest. And then you'll see them reach and go like this, my family. And what they're representing is when you're a young kid, you're taught right away, earliest memory I remember is, Tommy, you behave yourself. Tonakwa, the Sasquatch, female, is always watching you, kinking on him, you children. She's not allowed to touch you. But if you misbehave and don't do your chores, whine, fight, pull temper tantrums, don't clean your room, Chonocha licking her lips because at night she knows she can grab you and she'll come to your window or where you're sleeping and reach in with a big hairy arm and grab you. Put spruce sap from the tree in your eyes so you can't open it and you're blind and she'll toss you into her basket. Or some families shove you into a sack and carry you deep into the forest, up a mountain to her invisible home. That's why we can't find Sasquatch. And that's where she's going to boil you up and eat you. So you behave yourself, Tom. So that was one of my earliest memories. So instilling the interest of Sasquatch into me was my parents and my elders. And then going up to the ceremonial big house in Alert Bay and witnessing the potlatches of other families and mine and seeing the Junocha masks and regalia of Sasquatch. I was enthralled and fascinated so that when I moved to the city of Vancouver, British Columbia, 10 or I think 12 years old when Leonard Nimoy, something unexplained or whatever mysteries, came to the
Yeah.
movie theater and I went and I saw Patty for the first time in my life. 1967 Patty frame from Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson. And I went to the library, and that's where I was introduced to John Green, Renee DeHinden. And it would be decades later that I pulled into a gas station along the banks of the Fraser River in British Columbia in Hope, a Sasquatch hotspot with Agassiz and the Ruby Creek incident and so forth. I pulled into this gas station to grab gas and something to eat. And when I walked in the restaurant, there was Renee DeHinden. And I offered to buy his coffee and pie and if I could talk to him. So we talked and ended up going on an expedition overnight with Renee DeHinden. So that really instilled into me the interest of Sasquatch. And then when I became an adult out of school, commercial fishing all over the British Columbia coast, I did it for 45 plus years. I would end up in communities that most people will never go to, that are isolated and only accessible by boat or boat. And we'd be on the dock, and I'd talk to people on the boardwalk. I'd sit there and I'm like, hey, what do you know about Sasquatch? Oh, oh, I saw it. And I'd hear their story. Then I'd ask them what the cultural beliefs and perspectives, and they'd share that with me. And I'm talking the Hasla Nation, the Newhawk of Bella Coola, uh, the Shimshans from northern British Columbia, the Haida from Queen Charlotte Islands, the New Chandleth from the west coast of Vancouver Island. So I grew up being one-on-one with these native tribes and homesteaders and locals that lived out in the bush water world that would enlighten me with their encounters and stories and different things. And my uncle, he taught me how to trap when I was 10 through to I was 17, I guess. So I'd go trapping with him and learn bush skills so that when I wasn't commercial fishing and I had free time on my hands, I don't like humans for the most part when I was younger. So I'd go Sasquatch. I'd go into the bush. I wasn't afraid of it. I shot my first grizz when I was 16. And, just because I wanted to get the claws and the hide and the bones and try eating it. And, 16 years old by myself out in the middle of Timbuk flipping nowhere, I shot a grizzly at the 30-30. Put 4 bullets into him, but I dropped him. And then the hard part began. How the hell am I going to get that 800-pound bear in my speedboat? So I had to use ingenuity and
Pieces.
cut, I didn't want to cut it up. I wanted to bring it to the crane at the dock and lift it up.
Yeah.
Show, hey, look at my big bear. So ended up getting it in the boat after about 4 hours of work. And that, that adrenaline rush where your legs bouncing, your heart's pounding, you got your iron sight up on a grizzly bear that's on a bank and you're tied to a stump in a little creek, river, the tide's rising, and the thing's not 50 feet from me. And I just let it whop, floor quick, and he dropped. And that rush, it was euphoria. And I was just like, oh, I love the bush world. This is just amazing. And a few years down the road, this man who had a yacht, me and him became friends in the summer. And all of a sudden he goes, you're a pretty good bushman by the sounds of it. You want a job being my assistant hunting guide for grizzly, black bear, wolf, cougar, and fishing? And you'll be staying on this yacht in the lower stateroom. That was a chance of a lifetime, 97-foot boat. And I was a hunting guide on there for 2 hunting seasons every year, spring bear and fall deer and bears. And that really got me into the bush mode. And that's when I started learning things because I was bettering my ability to use windage to my advantage, be able to lick your fingers and wet your nose hairs. So like an animal that licks their nose, you can smell better. That's why coyotes, bears, cougars, wolves lick their nose. Get those nose hairs wet so you can smell that smell even better. And that's your greatest sense in the bush is your ability to smell. Not your ears, not your eyes. It's your nose. And then I would have things happen where I play bush chess, try to get close to what made that noise, what had that smell. And all of a sudden, all I'd hear is something rushing through the bush and bushes moving, never saw it. But I saw the tracks. And I thought, that wasn't a grizzly bear or a black bear. It was Jonah, the Sasquatch.
Hey.
So I bettered my skills even more. And on one occasion, I had an incident where I was sitting there and I'd talked to some native elders. I said, we call a Sasquatch, a lot of tribes, a watcher. Oh, yeah, Tommy, they're always watching from behind the branches, and they'll look at you. And if you're a bush dancer, you move like the breeze through the bush. You're comfortable with the bush environment. You're not like these city folks that come here to the Olympic Peninsula to hike, that have bear bells and bright clothes, and are tripping and slipping and stumbling. And all I see outside my store at SasquatchLegend.com is ambulances going back and forth, getting all these city folk who wiped out in the bush. Well, Sasquatch watches you. And he says, bush dancer, got a knife on his side, got a gun, wearing camel. But he's not looking where he's stepping. He'll look and he'll walk, but he walks like the breeze. He doesn't make that much noise, or she. Okay, pulls the branch down even further, lets it go, and the Sasquatch turns and walks away. The empty branch bouncing, which I noticed a few times when I first started really spending time in bush. And when I asked the elders, they said, that's the Sasquatch telling you, I saw you, I know you're here. The branch is telling you, I respect you. You go about your business, I'll go about mine. We don't interact. And that's the greatest teaching from Sasquatches. They are always respecting us in most cases. There's the rogue, but that's a psychotic hunter killer who went postal.
Created that situation. Yeah.
Yeah, when you get anywhere near a rogue, you get the hell out of there. Otherwise, you're going to be a steaming turd or two in the forest the next day from a Sasquatch.
Hey, Tom.
Those are the hunter-killer cannibals.
Uh, when you had killed the grizzly, um, is there, because we only know, us white folks mostly only know, well, what we see on TV and whatnot when it comes to Native Americans and milestones and whatnot. When you killed that your first grizzly, was there some sense of pride from your tribe, a celebration, or was that just more of an internal personal celebration?
It was more personal. It was also um, for my family, like the elders. I remember one of my uncles coming up to me and punching me in the right arm hard as he could. And I looked at him like, he goes, "Way to go, boy. I'm sorry. Way to go, man. You're a man now. Go after the Kela, the grizzly like you did at your age. Very impressive." And a few years later, he phoned me up. He says, "Hey, I'm too old now. My knees are bad. You go get me a Kela. Wow, let's Kela. Big one." I said, "What do you want the grizzly for?" He goes, "Oh, I need the hide for regalia. I need the claws for a necklace, and we'll eat the meat. And my family carver wants the bones, the big bones. We believe that when we have family members that are sick, carver artists like me will use the Dremel tool nowadays. White man's magic, no offense to the listeners and you, but God, I love Dremel tools. But you carve amulets of a grizzly bear face or a side profile. And when you give it to your sick family members or friends, the strength of the grizzly bear draws the poison out. So whether or not it works or not, but if you know your family member and a doctor tells you they have 2 weeks to live at the most, and they stick around for another 3 or 4, was it the power of the amulet of the grizzly bear bone, the spirit drawing the poison out, so you had an extra 2 weeks with them? That's all I can say about that.
It's the
Yeah,
power
But
of belief. It's the power of belief. There's no stronger
yeah,
medicine than the
yeah,
power of
yeah,
belief.
yeah. And I think the way it sounds was to your family and your tribe, killing the grizzly bear at your age out on your own was a transition from boy to man. Is that
to me it
accurate?
was. Yeah,
Okay.
to me it was. Like
Yeah.
we actually had a society. We still have a society called um, Nunzi. It's the Society of the Great Grizzly Bear. And you see them on potlatches, right? Dancing and posturing and roaring like a grizzly, and then a big grizzly mask and regalia comes out. And it's just phenomenal. But back in the old days, when I talked to my elder about it, he said, that Nunzi's nothing like it was like in the old days. They used to pierce the skin of the young men front and back with grizzly bear claws. And with leather, they would lift them up into off the ground and be up there for hours, roaring and posturing like a grizzly bear. And then when the dancer came out with the mask and the regalia, they would drop them and 4 feet from the floor. The leather would anchor out, get tight, tear the claws from their chest, sitting there sweaty, bloody, covered probably in ash from the fire because they're up high. Those dancers would stand up, start roaring and dancing and posturing like a grizzly bear. The one lying on the floor, cowering, crying. Mama would go over there. "Oh, it's all right, Lisa, little boy. It's all right. Mommy, look after you." Well, the doctor would come out, the shaman, and put a poultice on the ones that are dancing so that when their scars healed, they were very pronounced and they wore the badge of honor. They were a member of the Nunzi, the Grizzly Bear Society. The one that Mama went and cuddled, well, they get another poultice. They don't get the scar pronounced. They're not allowed to display the badge of honor of being a
Yeah.
member, full rank member of Nunzi, the Grizzly Bear Society. I belong to the Hamatsa Society. It's the when we dance, we're eyes rolled back, fierce charcoal faces, cedar bark rings, wristband, knee bands. We're wild because we're
Yeah.
cannibals.
There couldn't just be a
When we,
secret handshake. You got to be hanging by bones.
I belong to the secret society, the Hamatsa.
Yeah.
It's the most powerful society just below our hereditary chieftains. And we go through dance to get that, but we also go through testing and everything. I can't divulge that. It's secret, but
Ceremonies and stuff. Correct. Yeah.
yeah. But anyone listening, I highly recommend Hamasta, Hamasta. Google it. you will be enthralled at the society I belong to. And I think that's one of the reasons that gave
Can
me
you put
the
that out there, Bob?
strength and fortitude to go and live with the Sasquatches, so to speak. Because I remember in early 1990s, I caught my girlfriend bumping uglies with my roommate out in the driveway when I come home one night, threw her butt out right then and there. The police came to my house the next day and made me an ultimatum: get out of Dodge, or otherwise you're going to end up in the Huskow, the Crew Bar Hotel, jail.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there going, cheating girlfriend. Police don't want me in town. They're after me. And I got a letter from IRS in Canada, Revenue Canada, for over $127,000 I owed in back taxes from being a commercial fisherman. I'm like, this sucks. And all of a sudden I turned on the TV. I'm like, oh, now World War III is erupting. Desert storm? What the hell is this going on now? I'm like, I'm out of here. So I went to Campbell River up northern Vancouver Island, Central, and my cousin brought me out into my traditional tribal territories at our village that had been abandoned 20 years prior. And I went and lived in the bush. I come out for commercial fishing and things, but most of the time I would find that bliss was there. And, I'd be out there and, sometimes you'd wake up at night, lick your fingers, put them in your nose. And by the way, when you do that, don't use the same fingers twice. You got to put it in your mouth. But anyway,
Clean them
use a
off,
water
man.
bottle if you have to. But you'd wake up at night, you'd wet your nose, and all of a sudden, uh-oh, tuna. And you'd hear them downwind from you, smelling you. Boy, your heart would pound. And you just, yo, Lisa, tuna. Hello, how you doing? I don't know who you are, Sasquatch. And you just hear them, mumble something, and they just leave. Respect. And
Yes.
that's why now at 60 years old, as of March 7th, I'm an elder. I have to retire from commercial fishing in April last year and take the job managing SasquatchLegend.com here in Forks, Washington, because my right leg blew out because of diabetes, and I can't work as hard as I used to fishing. So now I'm sort of semi-retired. But last few years with my knees getting bad, 3 years ago I had more chins in a Chinese phone book. I was 100 pounds heavier than what I am right now. I had to smarten up. Otherwise, I'd be pushing up daisies. I'd be dead. I had heart problems, diabetic problems. And what Sasquatch taught me was when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And you don't succumb to weakness. You got to use your mindset. And that's what I did. Dumped 100 pounds, exercised a fair bit nowadays, started swimming. But out in the bush, Sasquatch has taught me that there's never a fat Sasquatch. They're always lean, mean, bulky machines. It's because they don't give themselves into sloth and to obesity and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people ask me, how come we don't see Sasquatches? I said, or sick Sasquatches. And I said, well, the Omaha medicine woman and tribe members taught me that they call their Sasquatch in Omaha Indian Reserve Sitonga, keeper of the medicine. And when I studied with the medicine woman about 5 years ago, after 5 days, I said, how old is a Sasquatch get? She goes, oh, 150, 180 years. And I was just like, how does a Sasquatch get so old? She just slapped me upside the head. What's wrong with you? Haven't been listening to the teachings I've been giving you? Sitonga, keeper of the medicine. Our people now and other tribes as well to this day, when the old days, when a shaman got killed by animals, disease, or an accident, well, your doctor's gone. How do you keep your tribe healthy? Well, someone steps up and goes, I'll volunteer. I'll go and leave. And they'll leave the tribe for months, a couple of years. And when they return, they have the knowledge of the medicine because they went and had a Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall interaction with the Sasquatch of their local area where they share their territories with. And they were taught the poultices, the plants, the roots, the flowers, and the list goes on. And some of our tribes still do this to this day. And that's why some Indian tribes, their people can communicate in their language to the Sasquatch. And, even my uncle told me that in the 1950s, they went up a river, Kinkum, he's from the Kinkum inlet area from the Chowedano tribe of the Kwakwaka'wakw. His name was Adam Dick. Some people will know of him because he was the main character in the book called The Owl Called My Name, as well as the movie when the book was made into a movie in the 70s. But Adam was a bushman, and he also was a grizzly bear hunting guide. That's why I followed in his footsteps. But Adam said that I asked him one time, I said, Adam, why do Sasquatches keep bugging me? They're looking at me and grimacing at my sea kayak camp. They throw things at me sometimes. One of them pounded his chest one time and hoofed, let me know I wasn't welcome up where I was. And he goes, just speak our language, Kwakwala, to them. They understand. And he said that when we were younger, we went up the Kinkum River with the canoe. That's when outboard motors first came out in the 50s. We went up to shallow water where we had a smokehouse. Well, smokehouse also was a cabin. They smoke their fish up high, but they sleep down below. That's what our longhouse, big houses were like back in the day when we lived in them. So anyway, he said a young teenager came with him, and when they beached, they told that young teenager, grab that wooden box with the pot of stew the ladies made us for dinner, bring it up to the cabin and start the wood stove and put it on there. All of a sudden, that young teenager come running down with that box shaking away there. Come on, get in the boat, get in the boat. We got to go back to the village. What for? We're up here to catch fish and smoke it. There was a Jonah sleeping on the ground beside the cabin. I woke it up. It jumped up and looked at me and said, yo. In my language, yo means hello. I don't know who you are. What you're supposed to answer is Hawed. Greetings. That's what he should have said to the Jonah, but he didn't. He got scared and turned and ran tail. So some of the tribes I've talked with, they still can, like down in Omaha, I watched people that brought me out investigating. We heard something walking through the bush come down towards us, and they're, aho, Sitonga. Hello, Sasquatch. And then they said something else. It didn't answer, but it did you could hear it grab a fallen down, dead, rotten tree, probably about that diameter. You could hear the roots breaking, and then all of a sudden, come flying through the bush towards us, but not near us. But the Sitonga was letting it be known that we were not welcome there. So I went back a month later, and I was contracted by the Omaha Indian tribe to do a tourism analysis of their Indian reserve, as well as investigating the Sitonga. And man, it's on like Donkey Kong down there, I learned. And we got some good FLIR captures of Sasquatch. We saw a pregnant female in a FLIR Scout 2 mono FLIR. Big pregnant female, really pronounced. And her big mate walking beside her. And they were not 80 yards from us on the road. And it was amazing. And, I learned so much about them, and one of the tribe members, who's a dear friend of mine for life, Lucas White, I communicate with him every couple of weeks on Messenger, but he's out there right now and doing investigations. If someone wants to book an investigation, I'll set it up. You can go with him on the reserve. He has permission from the chief and council. And he taught me, I'd ask him questions when I first met him. And because we had that bond of being tight with Sasquatches, he'd look at me and go, they have laws, very strict laws. Then he'd start telling me how they used windage and smells and different things, and why they don't use tools, and why we find toys out in the middle of the bush in the Omaha Indian Reserve and elsewhere, because the young one, when they come into the urban edge and nighttime and feed at our compost bins, our fruit and veg in the backyard, our pet and poultry and livestock feed and sheds, our outbuilding with a freezer. With here in the Pacific Northwest, the Indians will have crab bait and other fish bait in our freezers and food. And right here in the Olympic Peninsula, one of the tribe members was telling me that he pulled in his driveway and there's a big Sasquatch squatting in his shed with the freezer lid open, as in grabbed 2 frozen salmon, looked at him, and he said it didn't grimace at me. It kind of smiled as it bent down to get through the 7-foot doorway. So it's telling me right there he was 8-foot or better Sasquatch.
Yeah.
And he said, I just shook my fist at him. Will you just ask me? I'll give it to you instead of stealing from me. And he said right there, he goes, I always leave offerings. I'll get a big pickup truck load of in a fish tote of bait, but I always put some of it out in the edge of my yard there. Next day they're gone. I know it's the Sasquatch comes and takes the offerings. And that's what a lot of our tribes do. We give them offerings. We that one medicine woman said she'll leave bread and fish and poultry or whatever she has out, but she'll also go pick plants from root right to the tip, all the leaves, buds, whatever, every month. And she'll leave them on a table in her yard. And Tonga will come at night. And those were the two that I saw, that pregnant female and that big male were heading towards her house. And they'll take what's good on the plant for medicine on that particular season of the year and leave it on the table and push everything off onto the ground. And that's why when she comes out in the morning, the food offering is gone. She sees that, oh, okay, it's the buds of this plant that are good in this season. Now she's got to figure out what it's good for. She knows the basics, but then asking other medicine people, they'll tell you, oh, we also use that for this. Oh, okay, that's probably what Sasquatch was telling me. There's more than, there's multiple uses for this medicine.
Yeah.
So that's why I became I guess you could say I'm a Sasquatch celebrity. Just call it like it is, not big head vanity. People come into the store and pilgrimages from around the United States and the world even. They'll come here because they do their research, follow me on podcasts, videocasts, Sasquatch Island, my group on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. I'm on season 6, Expedition Bigfoot, on episodes 1, 2, 4, and 7, I think. But watch the series on Discovery Channel. You'll see me. And I star in the movie Bigfoot Girl, and I've been on other documentaries and numerous conferences. So word's out there that, there's a few Indians out there, but Tom has that really unique background because he lived in bush for so long and he interacted with so many other Indian tribes, and he's bringing that common knowledge of never think of harming or disrespecting a Sasquatch and never think of killing them. Leave them be. We call them the other tribe. They're simply humans. That's why when DNA comes in, it's contaminated by human DNA. It's got human chromosomes in it. It's an error on the DNA recording. BS. It's not an error. They're humans. It's just everyone is they've been around Asian people, Scandinavians, Inuit from up in the Arctic, Aborigines, people from Africa, people from Europe and Asia, Australia. We've been around these people all of our lifetimes with everyone that's on this planet right now with their heart beating. And we take for granted that we're humans. But all of a sudden we look and we see a Sasquatch running across the road in front of us or out in the field or on a riverbank or shore. And we're like, oh, is that an ape? Oh, gee, I wonder if it's come to a portal or another dimension. And, come on, give your head a shake. Can you imagine what it would have been like 500 years ago for all of us, wherever our ancestors come from? If Tom showed up and I said, hey, come with me in my porthole. What are you? I'm a North American Kwakwaka'wakw Cree Indian. Never saw one before. Oh, where are we? We're in a place called Africa. Notice how the humans are very dark here? Oh my God, that's gone portal again. Now where are we? These people really look strange. Oh, those are Chinese. We're in downtown Hong Kong. Come with me one more time. What the hell are these? These are Aborigines. We're now in Australia. The human I jumped in that portal 500 years ago would probably go have an aneurysm, faint, go into shock, because he'd never seen such diverse human species before.
Right.
So that's why I educate people. Use your supposed well-developed frontal lobes. Sasquatches are the other tribe, and they are humans. And that's when we go to the Indian tribes, and that's what I'm teaching everyone. If you want to get close and have that close encounter of the hairy kind with the Sasquatch, the first thing you must do is be able to respect your local Indians. So what you do is you go to the local Indians wherever you live and want to investigate Sasquatch, and you ask them protocol and permission if you can do that. And more than likely, they'll say, yeah, no problem. Just don't go in this part over here, and please don't come into our Indian reserve unless you hire one of our tribe members as a guide. You just open the door to friendship and working together and learn how to say, hello, I come in peace. I mean no harm. I give you an offering. Goodbye. Go in peace. So when I'm near a Sasquatch, I'm always, yo, Chonacha. Hello, I don't know who you are, Sasquatch. And, they never attack me or anything because I'm showing them respect. And when they leave, I'm always, Halakalesla, or way. Halakalesla means go in peace. Way just means goodbye and lift your hand up. So once you get that interaction with your fellow local Indian tribe, you're going to be able to learn stuff that I've learned from other tribes. And you're going to be able to better your game to have that close encounter of the hairy kind. And when it does get to that close encounter, think about history. Never repeat its failures. Know your history. Know that when those missionaries came here in those sailing ships and went into the indigenous tribal people's villages from North America down to South America, over 120 million indigenous people died of diseases. When COVID came, I got word out to my fellow Indians that I network with on the modern day smoke signal called Facebook Messenger. And I said, we have to let the Sasquatches know we're sick again. It's just like when the smallpox, influenza, tuberculosis, and other disease, Spanish flu, swept the Indian tribes and eradicated us in the millions. We must warn Sasquatch that those days may be here with this COVID we're hearing about. So I told everyone to grab 4 big sticks that you can just break over your head with all your strength. Go outside half hour before dark, start coughing and hacking like you're sick, blowing your nose and hawking loogies out of your mouth, and grab that stick and break it. And then 20 minutes later, do it a second time, a third time, last time when it's dark. The Sasquatch with the magic of 4, the breaking of stick, the coughing and hacking, and spitting out phlegm and mucus if you can, is to let them get the message. A lot of the Sasquatches did. One of the tribes I spoke to, members I work with, they said they finally returned after 3.5 years. Man, did they ever get scared, our Sasquatches? So that's why I would write during COVID the guidelines and recommendations for chance encounters and investigating of Sasquatch. And email it to anyone who wants it. And I'm going to publish it sometime. I'd like to get some of the Jane Goodall Foundation and others to hopefully endorse it and back it up in Indian tribes. Because one of the main things I put in there was, remember COVID, bring PPE, personal protection equipment, a mask, gloves. And don't be stupid and give Sasquatches gifts of modern day food. If you give them an apple, wash it. And oranges, tubers, whatever. But do not give them peanut butter. God, when I see Sasquatch researcher, I'm a Sasquatch researcher. I'm going to go and gift the Sasquatch peanut butter. Someone should go and bonk them upside the head with a tree knocker, because tree knockers don't work. They scare and disrespect Sasquatch, and we use it against the disrespectful, stupid investigators that we're dealing with. Peanut butter, we know humans have peanut allergy, nut allergies, and they can die. Why the hell would you go and gift peanut butter to a Sasquatch? You know, give your head a shake. Use those supposed well-developed frontal lobes we're supposed to have. And the guidelines in there about PPE, we have to really think, when I go investigating, I always got my mask and my gloves in my pack and I have the usual 4 or 5 pairs, just in case I get close. I'm going to look at Buddy, for out there setting up trail cameras like I got all over the place. And all of a sudden, a Sasquatch come close. First thing I'm going to do after getting my Nikon P1000 with the telephoto lens out and my audio recorder on, I'm going to put a mask and gloves on. Because if that Sasquatch so chooses to come close and likes that apple I'm putting on my trail camera, then I don't want to contaminate him with the filth that I have on my body, because I work in a store with the public every day. And then the other one, like today, I had someone come in and non-Indian, and they had Christian native sweatshirt. And right away, I'm thinking about garlic. Get out of the store, missionaries. And all of a sudden I go, what is Christian natives? Oh, we go down to the Apache reservation and we bring the word of the Lord to them and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, well, you're in the Sasquatch store. What are you going to do when conclusive proof for the existence of Sasquatch finally comes. And it's confirmed that they're just the other tribe. They're another tribe of Indian, just bigger, hairier, and black skin, nocturnal vision, still have the ability to excrete from their sweat glands in their armpits when they feel threatened or intimidated. What are you going to do with that good old Bible you got in your purse? Oh, we got to bring the word of the Lord to those Sasquatches if that's the case and they're human. I'm like, over my dead body, I got my regulations and rules that Canada and the US got to make laws that anyone that tries to put Christianity or any other religious faith onto Sasquatch when they're confirmed to exist needs to be thrown on one of Donald Trump's planes down to El Salvador and be gone with them, because we know our history and we don't want to repeat our failures. Christianity, I'm a Christian, but man, you look at the bad it done to us Indigenous people and still does. Residential schools. My uncle, my mommy didn't even meet him. He was born or he lived before she was born, but he was, like all Indians in Canada and the United States, forced in a residential school to have his culture, heritage, and language eradicated from him, and the good faith of the Bible, Lord, shoved down his throat sideways. Well, he wasn't listening to his religious studies properly, so the principal threw him down a staircase at the school, and he died that night from the brain injuries. And the list goes on. So that's what we have to be very conscious of with Sasquatches. Yes, we want conclusive proof of their existence, and yes, they will be human. But we got to look at things like PPE and missionaries, and we got to stop anything that's going to harm them or eradicate their culture and heritage, because they have laws, very strict laws. They have language, they have song, they are human. And it's just amazing when I talk to Native people, they share with me stories. Like when I ask key questions that other investigators don't ever even think of doing, I'll sit there and talk to elders, as I've done, and go, do you recall any accounts of the local Sasquatch that you call Gogich or Haliquas contracting smallpox, influenza, tuberculosis, Spanish flu when your ancestors got it? And that old lady, 96 now. I must have been 6 years old when I remember my grandmother telling me that her husband, my grandfather, who was living, that when he was chief, when we were in the village, everyone was dying of smallpox. And his men came into the big house and said, Chief, you better come outside. The Gogi, the Sasquatches, are at the edge of the village, at the woods. And when he went out there, the Sasquatches were holding their young covered in smallpox, dragging others that couldn't walk covered in smallpox. And the chief said, go inside and you get our people that are sick and bring them out, holding them, dragging them however you can, show the Gogi, the Sasquatch, that we have no medicine for the sickness and we too are dying from it. And that's what they did. I heard it from different tribes. Similar story. And the Sasquatches would just turn, drag, and carry their dying family members into the forest. And, you know, a lot of tribes thought their Sasquatches vanished, because some tribes, 96% and higher, some of the tribes vanishing from the diseases back in the 1700s to the early 1900s. And Sasquatches too. When I was born in 1965, my tribe numbered, I think my mom said, under 500 people. When I was born in 1965, now I think we number over 5,000 or something. We basically proliferated like bunny rabbits. So is every other Indian tribe, state and province and territory of North America. We're all, population's exploding. But as we're noticing now, because the magic of the cell phone and telephoto lenses and FLIRs, audio recorders, we're seeing an increase of Sasquatch sightings. And the reason for that is they survived smallpox, influenza, tuberculosis, Spanish flu, and bullets, just like any other Indian tribe. And now their populations are exploding, which is also alarming some of the things that are coming to light. Like me, my legs pretty bad shape. I can't hike from sea level to alpine like I used to in one day. It'll probably take me 3 days now, but I've sort of curtailed my investigating. Like, to me, it's like playing roulette. You got to know where you're going to put your chips to come up with a win. And I'm finding that going to the urban edge where the hobby farms are, even subdivisions, there's activity. Well, because when we're snoring and farting and REM sleeping in our beds, Sasquatch just goes and listens. Oh, heard a fart, heard a snore. Okay, time to go to the compost. Can you imagine what it's like for a Sasquatch to go to a dozen composts at night? It's like us going to an Indian casino and going to buffet. It's just like, woo, look at all this good food. Chow time, stuff we throw away, pe- peelings from potatoes, a soggy half a cantaloupe. Oh, I left it in the fridge too long. I forgot to eat it. A tomato with a little bit of soft and green mold on it. Pork chop bones, rib bones, and the list goes on. Fat that we don't eat, that we cut off our steaks. Can you imagine a Sasquatch? Yippee-ki-yay, look at all that good food. Go to the next yard. Oh, this yard here has got, used to planted turnips and potatoes. If I dig around his garden, I bet I'll find one. It's January, but there's always going to be a potato or turnip in there. And then all of a sudden it's, ooh, this one's got the greenhouse. I like this one. I like eating those, this, that, and the other thing. And, oh, next door here, I know that one. That guy's got an outbuilding. He's got chickens, and Sasquatch very rarely will touch human chickens or eggs. Why? Well, they don't want the chickens waking up, making noise, and them getting bingoed and caught by the guy and possibly shot. But if they go to the outbuilding, well, there's the chicken feed, and the Sasquatch likes that. Cattle farms with the big silo bin areas full of grains and corn. I'm finding tracks and activity in these places in Washington State and on Vancouver Island. Greenhouses. No offense, white man's magic. Got to be God. You got to use Google Earth. And you look for the wineries. You look for the greenhouses, industrial level. And Google Earth, you blow it up. You'll see the bins of cucumbers and green peppers and other things are grown in industrial greenhouse that don't make the market grade. So they go into the compost area. And when you go talk to the owner of the industrial greenhouse on Vancouver Island, because he's a mile and a half from the winery with all the wine grape things there, plants. And he says, oh, how'd you know about my local Sasquatch? And I put two and two together because I Google Earth your greenhouse and seen you had tons of greenery in the back that don't make the market or whatever. He goes, yeah, I learned a long time ago when I built my greenhouse about 15 years ago. I don't go back there when it gets dark. That's their time. And they go in there and fill their belly and all the stuff I throw in my compost. So you got to use ingenuity when you're investigating Sasquatch. And I'm bringing up things that most investigators never talk about, and doing things like licking your finger and checking out windage. You'll never see a Sasquatch like that or like Patty on my shirt. Very rare. Most of the time, you just can see them turn and disappear. And when you do see Sasquatch, they're like sniper in Afghanistan, Iraq, or Ukraine. They're embedded in that building way back so that he's not silhouetted at the window frame. And that's how Sasquatches, they'll blend in. So I teach people that when you see that Sasquatch or you suspect the Sasquatch around, grab that powerful tool called a cell phone and take pictures. Click, 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 click. Take video and scroll slow. Go up and do the same thing. Go home, plug your cell phone into your big TV. The TV behind me is about 72 inches. And oh my God, look at that. That Sasquatch, like Tom said, is embedded in the bushes. But I can see its face and its eyes and its pronounced philtrum, the distance from the top of the nose to the bottom of the nose to the top of the lip. The big jaw like Jay Leno. The ridges a little bit on the eyes. Some of them will have a conical head. You'll see their earlobes. And just like us Indians, they look like big slabs. Us West Coast Indians, we got slabby earlobes. So do our Sasquatches.
Tom,
yeah.
I got a question for you that is I'm dying to ask. With the Kwakwaka'wakw tribe, is there an origins of the very beginning, the very, very beginning of the Kwakwaka'wakw tribe and Sasquatch? Is there an origin, a story of the very first meet or recognition of that?
Well, we have what we call our Nuyum. Nuyum is our first ancestor. So, according to the legends and stories, the Creator created the world and put all of the animals we know, natural, supernatural, ghost world, even Jonoka, the Sasquatch. And he left the world and came back and realized that the animal kingdom was out of balance and harmony. No humans to harvest the animals. Some populations exploded, like we have with the seals and sea lions here on the West Coast and even on the East Coast in North America, and eating all the fish. Fish weren't returning. Animals that relied upon the fish or the too many deer eating all the greenery and caribou and bison, and everything was out of balance. So there was starvation, hunger, warfare, you name it. So Creator had no magic. So he went to the north end of the world where the ice fields are, and that's where he met with his brother, the Transformer, and told him to fly across the world. And as he came across animals, natural and supernatural, he would transform them into human beings. I come from the Polus, the younger cousin of the Thunderbird, and it was covered in white feathers with a little bit of blue on it, blue lines on its beak like an eagle Thunderbird, and feathered white horns on its head. And every other family has a story of their new yum. I am asking my cultural advisors within my tribe whose family comes from the Chonakwa. And so far, I haven't been able to hear that. The only one I heard was in Victoria. You'll see the Royal British Columbia Museum, and it's a big ceremonial big house with a big sea monster painted on the front and a big memorial totem pole in front and big cherry trees with blossoms. It's a famous Vancouver Island, Western Canada place. But you'll see at the base of that pole a female Junacha holding the baby. And it was just recently where I heard one of my distant cousins, who's a chief, explain, and it's his family story. So I can only just touch on it. I can't explain it because it's not my property or my title.
Sure.
But out of respect for the family, what he said was that pole represents where our male ancestor and a Chonacha had a baby, and that baby is their baby. He said more, but I'd leave it. You got to go to Port Hardy, Northern Vancouver Island,
Sure.
and look for
Sure.
Chief David Knox, and he can share the in-depth legend story of that. But right there, what intrigued me when he said that, I'm like, once we do sit down and have an interaction, communication with Jonah, and we ask him in Northern Vancouver Island, what is your New Yum? What is your first ancestor? Because if they're human and they believe in the Kwakwaka'wakw territories in transformation to human being from animals, natural and supernatural, maybe they have the same stories too. And maybe the Sasquatch will look at me and go, oh, I come from Chekame. New Yum is Kulus, just like you, Tommy. Oh, because Chekame had four sons, and that's where the different families come from. So it's complex in a Kwakwaka'wakw cultural way, but the, but to me, it's something I've always been intrigued with. Why is all the potlatches I recall? I've never recalled a chief with a Jonah. When chiefs come out in their potlatches, they have a headpiece of their new yum, their first ancestor or ancestors. You'll see killer whales, grizzly bears, thunderbirds, eagles, kulus in my family, but I've never seen one of a Chonach. So Chonach, I think, maybe is the first part of that transformation into humans. Just that when that transformation took place, that human would retain the big body, hairy body, dark skin, nocturnal vision, because they needed to have harmony and balance in nature. And what better way than to have a second human of the night instead of human of the day as we are? And then when you look at my laws of the Kwakwaka'wakw just before contact or prior to contact, we know our harvesting grounds to this day in some families. And you couldn't just go dig clams on that beach because it's low tide. That might belong to a different family. You can't just go pick clover or berries over there because there's abundance. It belongs to some other family or fishing spot, a hunting spot. And if you did do that, the Kwakwaka'wakw law was the family that got stolen from can kill the people that stole from them without retaliation, because that was our law. That's how valuable food sources were for our people. So can you imagine what it was like? Maybe Sasquatches weren't nocturnal. Maybe they were just other humans that were living, but because we got soft with clothing because we lost our hair. A lot of people ask me, what is a Sasquatch? I said, our distant ancestor. Back in the day, Sasquatches were bipedal humanoids, were doing their thing, living with hair on their bodies, bigger, nocturnal, maybe not nocturnal vision, but just doing their thing, living by day. All of a sudden, one of our ancestors got smart ass and clicked two rocks together and went, oh, spark. Oh, fire. Gee, that feels good. All of a sudden, the wife goes, oh, I better try cook it. Oh, gee, that fat is so crispy. The meat is so warm and tasty. Oh, I like fire. And thousands of years go by, and pretty soon now, because of their fire, they're losing their hair. They got to have clothing. They got to live in permanent, semi-permanent shelters. And now, because they have leisure time, we look at the gods must be crazy and what an empty Coke bottle can do to a traditional tribe that had the basics. Disrupt everything. Anger, animosity, hate, greed, envy, all comes out in an angry, empty Coke bottle.
Yeah.
And violence, where she hits her sibling on the head. And the dad, the chief, I have to go to the edge of the world to throw this thing back to the gods because they must be crazy to bring it into our family. So the Sasquatches, they probably said this is bullshit. Permanent housing, clothes, fire, cooking food, anger, animosity, hate, all comes from it. Let's go back in the bush with our kids and live like our ancestors. Harmony and balance with nature. And that's why I look at Sasquatch as the humans of the night. They chose to be the perfect human. We can look at pictographs from the Indigenous people and listen to stories from the Indigenous tribes of Sasquatch Island. And some of them will tell us and show us in their art warfare between the hairless bipedals against the bigger hair-covered bipedals. Yet we had spears, bows, and arrows in the pictograph and stories. Sasquatches just had nothing other than one account throwing rocks, which we know they do, because what we can do with a 22 single-shot iron sight rifle, a Sasquatch can do with a rock. The bigger the rock, the bigger the gun caliber a Sasquatch uses. That's how they get elk and other animals. But anyway, getting back to the perfection of the Sasquatch, we have mass vocalizations recorded. The most famous one I can recall is on YouTube, where a husband and wife are sitting in their pontoon boat with the two dogs at night as mass vocalizations take place because the truck transmission is blowing, they can't move. And they're terrified. The dog's even scared. What it is Indians will have powwow and potlatch, because what we needed that for was to exchange things and gossip and outperform each other on tier, whether it be tribal within the tribe and so forth. And then your ancestors, when they came to the New World, they had rendezvous. The Bushmen, the prospectors, the trappers, and they still have rendezvous. And what happens at powwow, potlatch, rendezvous, and gatherings at nightclubs afterwards? Well, the young people are bumping uglies. That's bush law. The seed must get strength. The species must always get stronger. No interbreeding. So when you hear mass vocalizations, what it is Sasquatch clans coming together for their powwow, potlatch, rendezvous. And just like drunken fishermen, when I commercial fish, showing up in a bar in a different port, and all of a sudden you walk in and it's, hey, Tommy, how you doing? Hey, Bobby, what's up? We haven't seen you in 6 months. Come have a beer and shoot some pool. That's what they're doing. They're vocalizing. And also to compete from clan to clan to clan. The metaphorical form of warfare for us Indians nowadays in North America is the basketball, soccer, and other sports tournaments. Well, back in the day, we just fought each other and killed each other. Well, we can't do that nowadays. Well, Sasquatch is no better than to have warfare amongst their tribe. And that's the mass vocalizations that we hear audio recording. And if you hear it out in the bush, don't even think of getting close to them, because they got scouts out there watching. And that's why a lot of people say, oh, I heard a tree knock. It's Morse code. People ask me, how come I never see a Sasquatch? I said, because you're not on the nipple of the tit. Pardon me? I said, Sasquatches are humans of the night. They're nocturnal. They sleep in the daytime. And what they do is they go mountain, hill, looks like a firm tit. We're going to have our old, young, and sick and females sleeping on the nipple. And around the tit, we're going to have our scouts listening. And down below might be a harvester or a hunter and another ring of scouts. I tell people the reason why you can't get close to Sasquatch is because they're like an atom. The nucleus is the old, the young, the sick, the elderly, and they're on the nipple sleeping or on a flat area where there is no mount. There's there. The electrons and protons are the harvesters, scouts, and hunters. And if all of a sudden a perceived threat comes, like a human, boom, 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 the nucleus now knows, be on the ready. The next command, be it a knock, a body movement, going up the chain of command, a vocalization, is to tell you to go to rally point A or B and use windage to your advantage. And that entire clan of Sasquatches is going to move like an atom and electrons and protons. And the hunters and harvesters that are out in the electron proton field, some of them are going to break away and lead that perceived threat away or challenge it and take it out. So that's why we don't get close to Sasquatches. They're always in family units. We can tell that by the tracks. And when you do come across one and go, geez, the only track I ever see is that 117.5 incher. That's a big track. That's an old boy. And he's a damn good hunter, heart and scout. And that's how they work. So look at the famous video on YouTube of how a wolf pack works. The ones in front are the old and sick. The middle, then they got your hunters, your strong. Then you got your young and female. Then you got your strong protecting their back end. Then you have the head wolf at the back.
Yeah.
And that's the way a Sasquatch clan moves. So when you play Bushcraft, what I'm teaching people on this video cast, I've gone places on this video cast I usually don't. And thank you for not asking me the stereotypical, can you tell us one of your encounter stories? I've had numerous. I've been within 20 feet of them 6 times. I've been around them over 30 times. And to me, one of my greatest encounters was when I was going up to an area to hunt with my cousin, and the wind was blowing, and it was probably northwest 25 to 30. So we couldn't go fishing or on the speedboat. So he said, and he had fetal alcohol syndrome pretty bad. He goes, let's go to that. You said on your wristwatch digital, that 550, 600 feet up. You know, the Junction Tommy, we walk up in the wind, the northwest. We can look down to the 3 trails from the logging slashes and see our deer, or maybe a wolf or cougar. I said, yeah, let's go. So we walked up. We got close to the edge where we're going to look down some 60 yards down to the trails. And he goes first, and all of a sudden he just stops me. And he looked at me and he goes, whoop, whoop, Sasquatch. I'm like, geez. So I sneak up and I look over, and there's a Sasquatch, back of a Sasquatch, just below us, about 30 yards. He's 20, 30 yards from the junction of trails. He's got his hand on a fallen cedar tree that's pointing downhill, and he squatted down with a tree right here on this side. And holy shit, I got my camera. Reached down in my pocket, and my canteen hit the tree. So turns, looks, does like a 20-foot jump. You can see his legs come up like a long jumper, boom, lands, jumps down the hill again, disappears in the bush. But something fell off the log. And we went down there like, holy shit, that was a big Sasquatch. And I was just like, wow, he didn't even know we were coming because the wind was in his face as it was in ours.
Yeah.
And what we found was a round stone that big. And that's when I learned the round stones I find out in the forest, the junctions above animal trails, they're killer stones. They're 30 caliber and 40 caliber for Sasquatches. And that's what they use to dispatch their animals. So what we can do with a 22 single shot iron sight, long rifle or short, a Sasquatch can do with a rock. So So when you go investigating and you come across tail feathers, feathers of birds, their feet, maybe their bill, and oh, coyote, raccoon, eagle, falcon, hawk. Look a little closer, and you're gonna go, huh? Starting to see tracks now. Starting to see evidence of bed down of something big, because Sasquatches are capitalizing on whatever they can get. So they'll
Opportunistic.
down and grab a stick or a rock, bingo, a squirrel, clowns, gopher, birds. Like out in British Columbia, I would come across seagull and Canada goose feathers when we go out on the beaches. And I thought, boy, raccoons must be good at getting them, or wolves, but I never did see their tracks. But then I would see the tracks of Sasquatch, and I figured it out. When the goose is head under wing, sleeping, standing on one leg, Sasquatch just goes down the beach to get clams, low tide. All of a sudden, it's like, goose. There's a goose, go along with the clams, shellfish.
Yeah.
And the seagulls, same thing. And that's why seagulls and cormorants, I find, will always roost on rocks that are in the middle of the channel, because they know
Excuse me.
that that's where, if they go on the main islands with trees, that's where the Sasquatches are. Seals, the same thing. And now that we have such an overpopulation of seals, and we have a lot of people, native Indians, shooting them to bring harmony and balance, because I'm president of Pacific Balance Marine Management on Facebook. I'm the president that's leading the campaign since 2018 to get the redeveloped industry of harvesting seals, sea lions, and sea otters to bring harmony and balance into nature.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm a Sasquatch speaker, because I want people to understand harmony and balance between we hairless bipedals and the Sasquatch, the hair-covered humans of the night.
I've got some questions. Bob, do you have any questions before I get into mine? Because Thomas has a. I feel like we could be here a week, and I'd still be just as interested as I was as soon as
Yeah.
he started.
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked you the question about if there was an origin, because you explained some things that I have never heard before from any Native American, and that's just it's fascinating. Um, but one of the questions that, as researchers, have myself included, I've heard knocks many a times, Thomas, in multiple places, and these knocks sound exactly the same anywhere I go when I hear the knocks. But as a human trying to reproduce the exact same sound, you can pick up any stick and hit it against any tree. It doesn't work. You can take a bat and hit it up against any tree, and it does not sound that like a Louisville Slugger hitting a home run. Wooden bat hitting a home run in Wrigley Field. Um, is it something that they're doing with their mouth or their chest or hands, or are they peeling bark off a tree higher up and smacking the tree to get that real wood sound and not thud sound? Is there anything you could clear up for us people that have been trying to figure out the simple things?
The palm knot, pop, cup it, popping noise. That's the Morse code. Be on the ready. Either more than likely evacuation, run to rally point one or back to the nipple and defend. But be on, it's like us going, hey, there's, or watch. When you hear the tree knot, they're saying, stop, human, by hairless bipedal, turn around and go back where you come from. We were taught as young boys when we were brought out, anchor the boat out, go ashore, high tide, kind of high tide, daytime. And we know we're going to clam dig that night. It's going to be a 1 foot low tide at 9:30. We know we're going to be clam digging there. First thing we did was we were brought to shore, and you know what to do. We told you. So we're all walking up in the high tide mark, looking for a pile of shells, like you were saying with apple snails, and looking for big indentations in the pea gravel. And couldn't find. That I remember that time we went to that beach. There was one of the elders. Hey, come here, you young fellas. We went over there. Look, jolly shell, cockles, favorite food of the Sasquatch. Smashed, eaten, still had meat inside. And so, they're clinging to the inside of the shell. Well, get in the skiff. We got to go back to the boat, pull anchor, go a mile either way to another beach we know of. Sure enough, a Sasquatch is digging here. And as we're walking back to the dinghy, sometimes they might not leave shells. They might hit a tree, might shake a tree, might push a dead tree down at you, might throw something towards you, might beat their chest, might roar. They're just like us. Everyone's got a different character, a different way of telling someone that, you know. You do that, and you can't back it up with that, you better not do that. So some
Right.
Sasquatches, will use tree knocks because it's generic to them. Stop, turn around, go back where you come from. And I've actually had it a few times. I've heard it. I'm just like, adios.
So it is.
Please,
Are they actually hitting a tree, or is it a hand on hand?
There's usually the pop, the ones where they like, smell and hear the human coming, then they look around and get that stick. And sometimes you might hear that crack, bang, bang, bang. Well, if something can break a branch that big, use your frontal lobes, or you can keep walking towards the noise. No, you can turn and get the hell out of there. Otherwise, you're going to be a steaming turd times 2 the next day on the forest floor.
Yeah.
That's the Sasquatch's way. And then when I went to a conference one time, because I do this conference circle, this guy was sitting there. He goes, I don't even know why I'm here. $150 for a vendor table. I'd be lucky if I sell enough tree knocker bats that I made on my lathe to pay for the gas and food. I'm like, what's your problem, dude? You're educating everyone never to tree knock, disrespectful to the Sasquatch. And if you're going to call yourself a tree knocker, you're never going to see a Sasquatch. My sales have plummeted. The other guy that I know who makes tree knockers out in the East Coast, he don't even make them no more because you and your big mouth. I'm like, no, a respectful mouth. And you be respectful, otherwise I'm going to be putting one of your tree knockers up in the backside of you because I can back that up. And right away he smartened up, And, what I did was I went Sasquatch on his butt, showed him I can be a rogue. And that's what tree knocking is the worst thing to ever do. Throw all those damn tree knockers in the fireplace and burn them. Or use them for halibut, salmon, and fish bonkers. That's what they're good for. Ain't no damn good for Sasquatch. Too disrespectful to the Sasquatch. Why it would be like someone opening the front door, bang, bang, walking in and saying, turn around and go back to where you came from before you moved in this house. We would never do that to someone.
Yeah.
Why the hell would we go into Sasquatch's house and tree knock and tell them to stop, turn around, and go back where you came from before?
Right. Do you have any luck with trail cams? I know that you talked about putting them up.
Oh, hell yeah.
Do you? Is there some kind of technique that
called
so
ingenuity.
let's just say this. Can they see the IR light, the infrared light? Because that's an ongoing debate. They can see it, they can't see it, but I know there's other animals out there that can see it. We have trail cameras of bears looking up at our and my trail cam. What was it? 15 feet up in the tree, and we had the squirrel underneath it. Bob, we had a bear underneath it, looking straight up. A deer looking at it. We know there's animals that can see it. Do they have? They're nocturnal. They should be able to see it, I would think.
So
that's just my guess.
I ordered something from Temu. 2 things. One of them's infrared night little camera, and the other one has got 3 antennas on it, so that when you go to a hotel room, you look for the cameras that are recording you and your wife bumping uglies, so you don't get recorded. So anyway, I'm going to start testing that theory about infrared with the trail cameras I got and with that little camera and other things over the next week here. But the main one is yes and no. So with trail cameras, ingenuity. So when you go in a forest, everything grows like that. Cracks in trees, branches splay and go up. Where do you see a perfect horizontal line?
The ground.
Only when you're at a lake with a straight beach across from you. That's the only straight line you'll see. And so with trail cameras, take the nylon strap off and throw it in the drawer like I do. I got about 35 of them in there. They never go to field with it. You got to use ingenuity. You got to do like I did when I captured a Sasquatch on a trail camera. It's a blur squatch. It's on Sasquatch Island. You just got to scroll back 5 years. But I embed them in rotten stumps because it's all logged in the Pacific Northwest, and embed it in the moss covered punky stump, put moss all around it, and then clear everything. Like I'm even learning it more and more that you got a clear swath. You can't have any branches that are going to move setting it off.
Trigger it off, yeah.
And then neutralize it. Like these, I downloaded 3 of them yesterday. So tonight, after the podcast, I'm going to go outside and get a bag of cedar and spruce boughs. And I'm going to put my trail cameras in the bag. They're all charged up. Empty cards are ready to go. When I get to the field, I'm going to pull them out of the plastic bag where they've been in there with the cedar and the spruce boughs. And hopefully the plastics absorb that instead of absorbing my human scent as I'm touching it, putting it in the bag and bringing it to the field.
Yeah.
And put them
That's really
under
smart.
things. Where I bingoed one was the Sasquatch had no choice. You're looking for funnels. So there's a log landing that's abandoned, and my cabin's half a mile away, and a lot of activity in this log landing up above. Pebbles being thrown down, vocalizations, arm seen shaking a branch out of the thing. So I went up there, and that trail going in is damn tough. And then you get up to the top, and it's sheer rock wall, and there's only like a neck of a funnel, a sheer drop off down to the log landing and water, and maybe 30 feet that the Sasquatch going down to the beach to harvest food at low tide and coming back up has to go through the neck of the funnel. So that's where I put on my trail cameras. But that SOB, he knew those trail cameras are there times like half a dozen or more we had laid out in the funnel neck. And what he did, he come up the trail, went through the bushes, and then he seen that trail camera, and he walked, knows those ones are over there. He's not setting them off, but he looks at that one in the stump. Stomp. You see his feet in the moss. Knocks the trail camera off because I got 5 frames of spinning tree and ground. And the last one's him with his right arm bent in, looking down at my camera, lying on the forest floor on its back where I found it. Smile for the birdie. I got him. So use ingenuity. Use what I just taught you with your trail cameras. Wrap them in lead sheeting if you can get it. I just haven't got around to getting lead sheeting yet, but I want to get lead sheeting and wrap everything but the motion detector and the lens and see if that works.
Yeah.
You know, another one I want to do is start putting them up in the trees, pointing down. So instead of, and that's what I think is happening with the trail cameras. With the nylon strap is a horizontal beam in the forest floor. Well, the beam coming out when you set a trail camera up is horizontal as well. So you've got to break the horizontal, maybe putting it up a tree, pointing down. Now it's a vertical. Putting it on an angle, pointing down. Now it's like a tree branch. I'm going to be trying that with my trail cameras over the next couple of weeks here.
Yeah,
Actually, Saturday we're going out.
I had all kinds of ideas about trying to, but we obviously know they're smart, and we probably can't outsmart them, but you know, you got to think outside of the box. And my thought was getting a wind chime and getting it hidden, camouflaged in a way to where, and it's, you know, it's up, but, and so camouflaged with somehow camouflaged to where whatever hears it is gonna basically have to go looking for it and basically be under it to see it, you know what I mean, type of thing. And then have trail cams from above angling down at the ground, you know, type of thing.
Don't waste your time with wind chimes. When you go investigating, number one, don't ever use a research word, because there is no researcher yet until we have a Diane Fossey Jane Goodall interaction. Then you become a researcher, and that's big kahunas. We're all investigators, stumbling and bumbling and speculating. And so that's when I go to conferences, I hear, I'm a researcher. No, you're not. Don't be silly. There's no researchers until you show some good interaction. And, it really opens, brings the ego down a bit, because Sasquatchology, man, it's an ego fest.
Yeah, I
Even
did
I would
notice that.
choose the, but anyway, with wind chimes, I love wind chimes. I had a bottle and a half of wine one night and during the winter. And within a week and a half, I had 8 wind chimes show up here in Forks, Washington from Timo. Don't Timo when you've been having a few wines.
No
So
junk
anyway, with
shopping.
wind
I've done
chimes,
some junk
one
shopping
of the,
before.
the reason why I got wind chimes is sometimes I go out and I don't want to interact with the Sasquatch. I don't want them coming near me. But through my years of being an investigator, going down a road and interviewing all the people in the houses. So you can't do that in the US. Everyone's got no trespassing signs or bang, bang, stop or I'll shoot. Up in Canada, we can go ring doorbells and knock on doors. Can I help you? I'm a Sasquatch investigator and I have a couple questions. Oh, yes, absolutely. So next thing you know, in their backyard and they're showing you where the compost was, odd things happening with this, that, and the other thing. And one of the things I noticed is people with wind chimes never have Sasquatch activity in their property, where there's a lot of Sasquatch activity on compost, outbuildings, gardens, fruit trees, so forth. Wherever there's a wind chime, no Sasquatch activity. It's like what I learned in Omaha. And if you have aggressive Sasquatch activity or they're scaring the bejesus out of you, just put 4 trail cameras up around your house. They'll never, Sasquatch will never come around again. You know, it's like I say, a lot of people, once they put trail cameras up, they're always doing the same thing, putting up the nylon. Like I caught Buddy and my wife, we put a cell operated trail camera up that we just bought. Well, that we got 3 now. But anyway, I went down to see it. And I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing wrapping that nylon on that steel post in the front yard? Oh, well, no, you got a horizontal line on something that isn't indicative of the forest or the metal post that probably had a satellite dish on it back in the day. So don't use those nylon straps and use that ingenuity. Use the different angles. Break the horizontal. Like right now, I was thinking about it more as I'm talking. I'm like, you know what? All my trail cameras now are not going to be horizontal. But mind you, I did get a pickup. Um, I'll actually post it on Facebook tonight. But when I went to retrieve my 4 trail cameras the other day, the lower priced one, when I recorded it, you had a black and white video, nighttime, 1 in the morning. All of a sudden, you hear this tail end of a vocalization. And then 15 seconds later, dunk, a stick knock on the tree behind the rotten stump where I had the trail cameras embedded. So what I think happened was the Sasquatch, because it was a cheap $16 Timo special, walked and activated the trail camera, but was out of lens and was back behind it here and vocalized, which I caught the tail end of the other one in the bush, 40 yards away, 50 yards away, whatever it was. You could hear that vocalization in the distance. So it's tricky, but you always look back to the trail camera captures that are out there, and they have been caught. So do they see the infrared? I don't know. And do they smell the batteries, alkaline? I don't know. But I do know that I captured a Sasquatch by breaking the odor, having my camera in a bag weeks before I went out with cedar
Yeah.
boughs and spruce boughs. I hear juniper is pretty aromatic down around Florida. You know, juniper, I know that aromatic red cedar, that's really fragrant, So use something that's got a lot of fragrance to it.
Do you have? Gosh, I don't want to throw out the Men in Black term, but are there forestry agencies up there that tend to seem to hinder things, or is that just all theory? You know what I mean. Like down here in Florida,
Yeah.
I believe that FWC is managing these things down here in Florida. They know about them when we have done some outings and whatnot, and have had activities and howls and things like that. We'll go back a week later, and exactly in the same exact spots where we had activity, they burn them out. They burn them out. They control burnt the exact areas where we were having activities. Is there a forestry agency that you know or have experienced in your area that does that same thing, that knows about them and are involved in not necessarily covering them up, but managing them enough to keep them away from people as much as possible? Basically,
Uh,
eco engineering their habitat to keep them farther away from people.
well, we have both sides of the blade on that one. The non-Indian gates are popping up in the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, British Columbia, like mushrooms growing in October. And so I started seeing on Vancouver Island hunting groups, the non-Indians posting, look at those damn poachers, dead deer, guts removed. They left the whole deer out there. And you can see the sticks in the belly cavity. And elk, same thing. Poachers left an axe, a piece of rope, a dead elk. And all they took was a hind quarter and left the rest of it out to rot. Those damn stupid poachers, probably the Indians. So I investigated and I found out that it was the Indians. They got the keys for the gate. They go on Facebook, and just their tribe members are allowed to join that tribal Facebook group for communications. And they say, this road, this gate, next month on this day will be locked. The Guardian resource workers will go into the roads and make sure no one's up there broken down or up there doing whatever. And we'll leave someone at the gate for 24 hours just in case someone does come down. And what they're doing is they go in, and as they're making sure there's no humans up there because the gate's already been locked, they're doing their patrol. They'll shoot deer and elk, gut them, leave the gut pile there, put sticks in the belly cavities so it doesn't sour the meat when it's cooling, and it doesn't retain the heat, it cools faster. And they leave it out for Sasquatch. This like an offering of saying, hey, thanks a lot for not bothering us while we're berry picking and hunting season and fishing up at the lake. But here's your payment for showing us respect. We respect you by leaving you some winter meat for the beginning of winter. And I said, what about the metal axe and the rope you left? Well, our Sasquatches in our tribal territory, if we don't leave an axe or a knife out for them, they'll just steal it from our smokehouse cleaning table. So I'd rather have my axe down at the res left alone and my cleaning knives on the holder under my overhang by my smokehouse. So we leave the odd knife and axe out for them. So they do use tool. But one of the big things with Sasquatch is they have laws, very strict laws. And that's why when you do find limited to no tool use, they have laws, very strict laws. They're not allowed to use our stuff. Look what tool use got us and the use of fire. It's got us in terror sometimes over the news about Putin and Trump and other leaders with fingers above buttons ready to launch nuclear missiles. You know, that's where we're at in our world right now because some damn stupid ancestor went and clicked rocks together. I know what it's like to live in the bush in harmony and balance with nature, even though I had a gun or a shotgun or both with me. But I was out there in bliss, in harmony in nature. And I didn't have a pack sack full of food. I went in with a little bit of, well, quite a bit of coffee and a lot of cigarettes. And once I ran out of that and maybe a little bit of dry fish I brought for 3 or 4 days till I shot something, I just ate as I went. Fish, shoot, bang, harvest. Roll over a rock at low tide. Eat barnacles, eat clams. So Sasquatch is having these laws, very strict laws. When we find the odd toy in Omaha Indian Reserve, 1.5 miles at one point, 3 miles out in the timber. Kids' toys, a crib toy, you know, the babies when they first can sit up, they squeak, squeak, push buttons, spin little colorful things and so forth. One of those found. We got pictures of it. Found 1.5 miles off the road. No kid 5, 6 months old is going to be out there carrying that crib toy.
Yeah.
So how did it get there? Well, when the mom goes with her kid into the backyard of the hairless bipedals while they're sleeping and farting, at nighttime and eat the human produced foods, the kid goes, "Oh, look, isn't that nice? Squeak, squeak, spin, spin, ring, ring. Oh, I like that." And as he's walking a mile and a half in the forest, all of a sudden they come across another clan member, be it male or female. What's wrong with you? That. We have laws, very strict laws. You don't ever take anything from the hairless humans' backyards, any of their property. And then it turns around, knocks the mother upside the head. The hell's wrong with you? You know we have laws, very strict laws. And that's why you find those toys discarded out in the middle of Timbuktu nowhere, left by Sasquatch juveniles.
Do you, so to the question, do you think there are any kind of government agencies that are trying to keep them secret, trying to keep them covered up? Like I said, when we went out on our expeditions, everywhere we had activity, FWC, Florida Wildlife Conservator, department,
Okay,
burned out. They burned out the areas where we had activities. Do you experience
So,
that up there?
absolutely. We call them the men in blue in Canada, and they're the men in black down here. But
Okay.
for Diane Fowler, every time Kent, Washington, where me and my wife have a condo and live, but I'm living here in Forks, not since last April. I work. Every time I go up to Kent East Hill, back before I was living down here, there's the Fred Meyer grocery store and gas station. And I always make sure I talk in the Big Brother, my cell phone, because it's always listening 24/7.
It is.
Fred Meyer gas, $4.25 a gallon. Times that by 1,000,000, you buy my silence. I'll never speak or do anything Sasquatch Bigfoot related. Now I'm doing it in Forks, Washington. If you're listening, Big Brother, 443 today in Forks, Washington. So $4,430,000. You buy my silence. So I have the video that just got released last month. I saw when it first got smuggled out of the military 5 years ago, 6 years ago, of the Sasquatch running infrared helicopter just above the treetops, goes right, goes left, goes right, jumps, goes left. Thing goes to snow. I watched that on someone's big iPhone in Eastern Washington 5.5 years ago. And when I gave it back to him after the sixth viewing, the Sasquatch died, didn't it? Gatling gun from the helicopter. Yeah. We can't release it. But we heard a podcast where you talk about the men in black, men in blue, the conspiracy side of Sasquatch. But to me, it's a whole episode, another hour and a half, but I'll just touch on it. The Gatling gun was invented for one reason in the 1800s, to machine gun Indians, so that ranches, farmland, cities, iron railway lines can go in. The Gatling gun's been perfected to a point now that it's 30 and 50 caliber. It's in a helicopter, probably in a drone by now, and backed up with infrared, so there is no darkness, no continual daylight, heat sig. You can't hide in the foliage no more. And like the Turkish caves that they're starting to understand now, they're so many thousands of years old, and some transcript got translated that they were ordered to live underground because of Holocaust, the catastrophe was coming to the world. I think we're at the point now with helicopters, Gatling guns, militaries eradicating Sasquatches, that they're going to have to go underground or get into the cave structures, because there's a reason why there's an explosion of Sasquatches at the urban edge. Here in Forks, Washington, I could hear at nighttime, helicopters. Training, I imagine, but probably 1 out of 10 times I hear that, they're out hunting Sasquatch. That's how they got the mountain goats off the Olympic Peninsula. They use flares and helicopters and heat apparatus. So the reason for the increased urban edge is that Sasquatches know that living out in the deep, deep forests and barren lands where there's no humans, they're being gunned down. And someone would ask, well, why? They want to do that. Well, the worst mistake they did in North America, Canada, and the US was they didn't produce enough Gatling guns, and they never sold them to Canada back in the 1800s because they should have eradicated all of us North American Indians and the Inuit up north. Because in Canada, we have recognized Indigenous tribes, Inuit up north, me as a First Nation, and what you call Cherokee, the mixed bloods, we call, the Métis just got recognition 5 years ago. The three Indigenous tribes of Canada cost billions. We shut down industry, resource extraction, forestry, pipelines, refineries, LNG gas plants. We can shut down and bring cities to their knees in governments. That's how powerful the Indigenous tribes are in Canada. In the US, you have your North American Indian that brought the government to its knees. That's why they got casinos and are turning into billionaires, the tribes, and everyone's benefiting from it. Over 230 Indian tribal casinos and economic development corporations in the US now. And in you have your Inuit up in Alaska that can hunt 365 days a year, fish 365 days a year, can even hunt bowhead whales and other whales, walrus, seal, porpoise, beluga whale. Non-Indigenous people can't do that. In Canada, I have free contact lenses and glasses, dental care, free prescriptions, free medical, free post-secondary education, free education training for being a ambulance attendant. Everything's given to us Indians in Canada on a silver platter. And the governments right now know that they made a big mistake. They didn't use enough Gatling guns on those damn Indians, Eskimos, and half-breeds. And now look at us. The Cherokees are probably going to get more rights through court cases down here in the US. More Indian casinos will go up. Indians down here are telling the government, the North American Marine Mammal Protection Act, no, we're going to start hunting whales again. We're the Macaw tribe from the Olympic Peninsula, and it's our right and our culture and our heritage. So we as Indigenous people are more American than American and more Canadian than Canadian. And the last bloody thing the government wants is the gross domestic product to be spiraling out of control, worse than the economies are right now with the tariffs, because some damn idiot went and brought in a dead Sasquatch, and now it's on the front page of the cover of National Geographic with a big editorial. It's all over Discovery Channel and Knowledge Network and History Channel, and all the environmentalists and the Indians are all up in arms going, Sasquatch lives matter. And we need to put conservancies and protect their area. And those ranchers that have thousands of acres and they want to go wipe out 1,000 acres of their timber to sell and plant alfalfa to sell on airplane loads to the Saudi Arabians for their Arabian horses at obscene prices per bale. Well, now him and industry, logging, mining, fracking, pipelines, urban sprawl, railway lines, hiking trails, ski resorts are all going to have to do a Sasquatch environmental assessment before they will give the permit to do what they're going to do to alter the environment that is Sasquatches.
Yeah,
and don't forget, Sasquatches are going to get the same rights as us First Nations, North American Indians, Inuit, Métis in Canada, and eventually the Cherokee down here. We cost billions, and there's no bloody way they want another damn Indian tribe recognized in North America. Right. There's your conspiracy theory.
No, and it doesn't sound like theory the way you laid it out. The way you laid it out, it doesn't sound like a conspiracy. I mean, you touched on something about what me and I feel this way, and I think Bobby does too. He just doesn't verbalize it as much as I do. The way you said that Sasquatches, if they were out there in the middle, way out there in the middle of the forest, hundreds of miles away from everybody else, they'd be eradicated. They're not. They're right up on civilization. Mm-hmm. And I believe they have to be, but I didn't have the big picture that you painted. My thought process was they have to be right on the edge of civilization. That's why we have this screen right here on the edge of civilization. Because in my mind, they have to know where we are at all times so they know where they have to be in case we encroach too fast. Is that accurate?
A title should say Sasquatch is leaving civilization and migrating to the uncivilized urban edge for safety from the helicopters and drones.
Yeah.
Because are we truly civilized? We're, as George Orwell said to us in the book 1984, we're always at war. We just don't know with who. We are the inferior, most stupid animal and worst bipedal creature on this planet. And orangutans got more sense than we do. They'll reach in and rescue something in the water, a bird or something like us. Most of us, we wouldn't give a drowning pigeon the time of day walking to the city because I've seen it. I was the one who had to jump in that fountain and wade out and rescue that poor damn pigeon. It
Yeah.
hit the one of the parts of the statue and was all bonked in the head and fell into the pond. Everyone, God, others just walk by, just like we do with homeless people, panhandling. But no, this Crocodile Dundee at the time, fresh out of the bush in the city. I have to jump in there with my new cowboy boots and go rescue that stupid rat with wings, but it was the right thing to do.
Tom, we've had you on here for an hour and 47 minutes, and I appreciate every second of it.
Yeah,
I feel like I have.
it's a lot of very, very interesting stuff.
I feel like I could have you back 3 more times and touch on different things.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
is
That's
there
my
is
job
there
is.
is there if you would like to come back, we would love to have you back. Is there anything you haven't touched on that we could touch on potentially next time? Um, when it comes to the Kwakwaka'wakw tribe and Sasquatch, not necessarily heritage, but um, interactions through time on things that were learned or traded or em- em- embedded with your culture, um, that carry to this day. Like, is there certain things that you would like to come back and touch on? Because I'm really interested in the culture of it. It is really cool. It's really enlightening. But you had to live it, and your ancestors had to live it, and it probably wasn't really cool and enlightening to see millions of deaths and the things you guys have went through, and basically lose your country to a bunch of people on a bow with guns. Um, you know,
Not
um,
us. Walk. That's why we're such a strong tribe because we're tenacious, stubborn SOBs.
yeah,
That's why we have one of the deepest cultures of any Canadian tribe, other than the Inuit up north, who still really are embedded with it. But I've met so many. My mom's a full-blooded Cree Indian from Central Plains of Canada, Saskatchewan, and it's just the Kwakwaka'wakw, and that's what I'm bringing out is like everyone, if they have an interest on Sasquatch, they need to go to British Columbia, go to the Museum of Anthropology at University of British Columbia and see the Sasquatch stuff. Go to the Royal British Columbia Museum in Victoria. Drive up and stop by Duncan an hour up the highway at the City of Totems and see the beautiful Chonafa carving with a Thunderbird on top that my cousin made, one of the Alfred boys. And there's another one there as well. And then go to the Umis, the Cultural Center in Alert Bay, Campbell River, and see all of the beautiful things, and especially during the summertime, reaching out to the our cultural center in Alert Bay, umista.org, umista.org. Umista means return of something precious. But you can learn so much about Chonocha, Sasquatch, and Bakwus, the little people, little hair covered bipedal creature. That's a whole different episode. I can get right in depth on that one
oh,
too.
that'd be
But
great.
anyway,
That
yeah,
would be
and
great.
yeah, that's I can bring out the masks and everything. I haven't brought out masks yet, but if my wife's here and we do another one, I'll get her to come out and she'll have the mask and regalia on and everything so the viewers can see
Yeah, that'd
that
be great.
both of Sasquatch, Chonafa, and Bakwus, the little people, otherwise known as stick people.
How
Little
little
people,
are
we
they?
call them buckwhats.
How little are they, Tom? Because
Four
I
footers,
got a video. I'm sorry.
4 footers, 3 footers, 4 footers.
Okay.
Just like any other bipedal creature, they start out small. Some grow that big, some get that big, some get that big, and so forth, up to 10-foot giants called
Gotcha.
big Sasquatches in the Northwest Territories and Yukon.
Right. Gotcha. Awesome.
Yeah, no,
Um,
definitely get me back on again.
I, I would love it because again, it's the culture and the interaction that I think that we could probably learn from because they were with you guys way before they were with us.
Mhm.
Oh
Us
yeah,
white men.
we're
You know.
still together. Some
Hmm.
tribes. That's why some tribes are like, "Oh, we don't even speak about that,"
Yeah.
and shut you down. Well, then I remember hearing from one of the tribes a little while ago, 10, 15 years ago. Oh, we don't even talk about it. Then they got to know me and everything, and now they talk about it. They got it going on with Sasquatch. I can't say the tribe or where they're located, but they are in Sasquatch Island in the Pacific Northwest region. And man, they got some compelling things. There's other tribes that are GIS mapping seasonal migrations of their Sasquatch. When I got here, I used the formula that we came up with when we started putting this and discussing this, that we took 10 miles of shallow river that's optimum for salmon fishing, steelhead, or trout, and other. You take the 10 miles, actually, it's 10 kilometers in Canada, 7 miles in the US. There'll be 4 Sasquatches. That's a factor of 4 route we use. So the whole river here on the Olympic Peninsula, when you use the factor of 4, there should be 16 to 24 Sasquatches on that drainage and tributaries going off. And when you look at the entire Olympic Peninsula, you come up with a number of 168 to 220 plus Sasquatches on the Olympic Peninsula. When you use Washington State, you come up with 12 to 1,500 Sasquatches throughout the state. When you look at it at a North American level, you're getting well past 120,000 Sasquatches. So when people come into the store, SasquatchLegend.com, that I manage, like guy, another poorly developed frontal lober, come in. Oh, you mean there's more than one? God, I feel like grabbing one of those tree knocking bats that we can't sell and dunking them up the head. Here, it's not some reasoning into you. They're no damn good for tree knocking. Might as well use them to knock some sense into you. Yeah, there's more than one, but the code of natures, there's got to be more than one, so there's no inbreeding. Can't just
Yeah.
have two either. You got to have male, female, and thousands. So
Yeah.
there's no inbreeding.
The night of the night of my encounter when I was a child, there were two different ones, and they looked completely different. Um, what I tell people, the big one that was at the window, Thomas, it looked, and I mean this with no disrespect. It was at the window. It was cinnamon color, but its face looked like really, really, really old Native American elder. The face of it, but it also had that mix of Neanderthal in it too, um, and it was more human than the one that fell out of the tree and landed 5 feet from me. The one that fell out of the tree and landed 5 feet from me, it had more of an apish bubble face to it, um, but it was upright. It was 6 foot tall, slender, black, and built like a swimmer or a basketball runner. You know, it was slender, muscular, but not bulked. The one at the window
Yeah.
had to be at least 8.5 feet if it was standing up all the way, because I only saw from here to here, and it took up the entire window. And I was in a mobile home, and you know how tall windows are,
Yeah.
top of windows are in a mobile home. So if it was standing up straight, it was 8.5 feet. But it looked like a Native
Yep.
American, an old Native American, an elderly Native American, and it was a cinnamon color,
Yep.
and that was
Like
in
I've
North
been.
Carolina.
Wow, you Erie Forest?
I was in Pembroke, North Carolina, when where that was,
Mm.
and I think that's probably a couple hours
It's
away.
close, yeah. It's fairly close.
Yeah, well, Julie
But
Wrench is down there with her husband.
this was 45 years ago too. It looks
Yeah,
a lot different than it did.
yeah. No, it's intriguing because like late Dr. John Vindernagel is my dear friend on Vancouver Island for 1990 to when he passed away in 2017. Him and he went to Kentucky and he saw the sort of monkey faced muzzle type female Sasquatch sleeping on that property that got shut down by Men in Black. But he came back and he said, I saw a sleeping Sasquatch. This is what it looked like. And then he showed me the video a few years later of the same one. And it's like, it don't look like our Pacific Northwest Sasquatch. But then, you look at, we're so accustomed, like I said earlier, about all this hairless bipedals of different color and places our ancestors and we came from. Well, I'm always from North America, but Asia, Australians, Africa, Scandinavia, you name it, you know. But if you go back 800 years before the sailing ships, and even longer, can you imagine what it was like? You went to Australia, you saw Aborigines only. And if you went to the Polynesian islands, you only saw Polynesians. And yet, if you did go to Irian Jaya, New Guinea, you saw almost someone that looked like they came from Africa to a certain extent and still do. But the Polynesians look so Hawaiian, Polynesian, New Zealand, Maori
Islander. Yeah.
So diversity of the human species was always based upon evolution of the region they lived in and were contained with it. And, but the original migration happened from Africa throughout all 6 continents, excluding Antarctica. And you look at the diversity of species because of that, of the human. Yet people are still struggling to comprehend that. You mean Sasquatch is a human? Yes.
Awesome.
Look at the
Great.
people living in the Andes. They got a larger lung capacity, Andes and the Himalayas, because they live above 10,000, 14,000 feet. The Inuit have a larger liver because they have to deal with thousands of years of living with all of that oil from the food they eat, seals, whales, so forth. Yeah. And then you have the African people, but you have the South African bush people who were labeled with a P word because they were smaller. They're smaller, but when you look at the early studying of the bush people, when the capital D small r periods before their names and explorers went down there, they found that the females have a flap of skin over top of their genitalia. And still to this day in medical journals, they don't know why. That's adaptation to evolution of a human species for a reason, for the environment and area they live in. And yet, here's this big human living here in North America, Asia, Australia, that is hair covered, is bigger, faster, nocturnal vision in most cases we're seeing, but they're able to excrete from their armpit glands when they feel threatened or intimidated. Yet when we go to the doctor and go, how come when I go camping or I go 10 days without a shower, I really stink in my armpits? Oh, well, because I'm a doctor. We were taught that through evolution, our distant ancestors had scent glands in their armpits. And if they felt threatened or intimidated, they could excrete it like a skunk. And that's why we have body odor.
Yeah.
Excuse me, doctor, but you just told us who our original ancestor is. They're still running around out there, male and female. They're called the other tribe, Sasquatches.
Right on.
We evolved to what you said with your title, civilization, civilized. Really? Have we progressed as a species of bipedal humanoid like Sasquatch, or have we regressed to the hairless, evil, hating, envious, stealing, thieving, corrupt bipedal creature that we are?
Yeah.
That's why I go to bush.
Evasive. Evasive is a good word to throw in there too. Yeah. Evasive.
That's why they don't want to be near us. They've looked in our windows.
Tom, great show. It would be an honor to have you back if you would like to come back. And I think everybody here is probably unanimous that would love to have you back as well. We're gonna call it a night. I'm gonna.
Yeah, it was great listening to you. Absolutely great.
Thank you very much. It was nice reading your body language, Bob. It was really nice.
Yeah. So everybody, thanks for coming in and hanging out with us. I'm sorry that it's been a while since we've been on. Like I said, our family has went through some stuff. Everybody goes through it. It just kind of hit us, snowballed on us. We're going to try to get back onto a regular schedule and see back here next Wednesday, at least the Wednesday after next. I believe I got somebody for next Wednesday and the Wednesday after, actually. So it might be 3 weeks that in 3 weeks I don't have somebody. But if we don't have somebody, we don't have somebody. It's not something that, again, Bigfoot's never going to be my priority. Sasquatch is never going to be my priority. My family will always be my priority. And as it should. But Tom, before we go, you want to give a plug out to all of your sites, all of your museum?
Order West Coast Native Indian Sasquatch art. I create numerous designs. SasquatchLegend.com. We have a vast online store, and we are also based here as the largest Sasquatch museum and store in North America, Sasquatch Island, here in Forks, Washington. Come see me. I do expeditions out here. Go to SasquatchIsland.com, my website for expeditions, my West Coast Native art, podcast, videocast page, list goes on. And by all means, follow me on Facebook. That's the Encyclopedia of Sasquatch. Reading and going through my Facebook group, you will be taught how to have a close encounter of the hairy kind. TikTok, YouTube, Sasquatch Island.
If I'm not mistaken, your personal Facebook page is filling up quick. You want people to go to Sasquatch Island, don't you?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Gotcha. Thanks for coming on, Bob. You got anything you want to say? Anything?
No. Thank you. It was very interesting. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Very enlightening.
A lot of perspective that I've never heard or thought of.
Yeah.
Just a completely unique perspective that totally different than what most people have here in southern U.S. So
yeah,
it was different and very interesting and intriguing.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you again, Tom. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our mods, Miss Diane and Cashew, and I seen my wife on there and my cousins and all my friends, and we got a lot of people that's been following us since we started. We appreciate you guys so much. We will see you soon. You guys have a great night. Tom, I'll put you backstage and we'll end this real quick.
Okay.
All right, Bob. I'll see you later, bud.
All right, man. We'll see you.